the mechanics of this deal, because it looks like and MLS PR put out a statement yesterday saying not everything's finalized. We're excited Messi's coming. And then Messi also included in his statement that not everything's finalized either. But it looks like they're going to find that resolution. But it looks like he's going to get a piece of the pie from Apple TV, get some from Adidas, get some future ownership. And it just feels like a deal is that legal? Can I mean, they've done it with Beckham before, but it seems to go a little counter to a standard player agreement. You know what I'm saying,
It's
Paul?
definitely not the SPA that you guys signed. Let's put it that way. No, I think Charlie nailed it when he went back to Beckham. The irony is that first DP deal that ever existed in MLS, the Beckham deal, that set this up in many ways. One, because it gave Beckham an option to buy a team for $25 million, which became Inter Miami, which is now where Messi is going to come. But it gave a framework for how to make a deal for a special kind of figure in global soccer. And that's what Messi is. Designated players can be paid whatever they want. So it's not breaking any rules, right? The compensation numbers could be $1 billion if that's what they wanted to pay. But the way they structured this deal, all of the parties that are involved, makes it a more difficult deal to kind of get on paper, iron out all the details, get it signed. And yeah, I think MLS is probably going to feel pretty nervous until the pen hits the paper that, Barcelona and Laporta, if they haven't already done enough damage to the chance to get back in the picture, that they don't get back in the picture. But, look, let's look at the Apple deal, because I think that's the biggest piece of this. Apple invested in Major League Soccer, and their hope was that it would pay off in a big way, bringing in a global audience. The idea of this deal is that you can watch it anywhere, almost anywhere. There's a few countries that are blacked out, but you can subscribe to Apple TV Plus and subscribe to the season pass and get this product and get eyes on this league. Well, Messi changes the game on that. They believe that Messi is a figure that's going to drive a lot of eyeballs to Major League Soccer, and in doing so, a lot of subscribers to Apple TV. And that's Apple's goal. It's not just about growing Major League Soccer and the season pass. It's about growing Apple TV Plus and getting people to tune in. And so it makes a lot of sense that they're saying to Messi, hey, if you come, we will give you a piece of that pie. For them, it's not about the profits on Major League Soccer season pass, right? It's about bringing more people into Apple. So, it speaks, I think, to just how big of a figure he is in sports, that once you start giving away revenue share and you have companies like Apple and Adidas saying, we want to be partners with you, that's a different level. And I've seen some people complaining, oh, it's not fair to our teams that Messi gets this. I'm sorry, but this is good for Major League Soccer. It's good for your team indirectly. And my hope is that eventually it changes Major League Soccer in the way that the Beckham deal did, the way that the DP rule did, that, right now we're hearing all these names of Messi's friends that want to come. Well, good luck to Chris Henderson doing it under Major League Soccer's rules. And so hopefully we see an acceleration of some changes to the rules that allow for spending across more of the roster to bring in more quality, so that teams can be more aggressive, not just in signing guys like Messi, but in spreading out the money and trying to make more well-rounded, better teams overall. And I think Messi has the power to do that.
Do you think, kind of looking on that same context, right? We now know we've got an international deal that's been done. When the deal gets done, that's an international product. But we're still missing a national product in the U.S. And you'd mentioned some of those mechanisms being able to change. And when I say national product, I mean, why should I watch New York Red Bulls play against Orlando, right? What are the things that make me, like in other sports, love them or hate them, but you got to tune in, whether it's entertainment, whether it's for what they stand for or don't stand for, all of those things. Do you truly believe this type of thing, because we're grounded in collective bargaining agreements and all these things, could actually accelerate some of these different salary cap rules and mechanisms that could lead to just an accelerated growth of the league in general?
I mean, it could. I don't know that it will. We've seen kind of a reticence from Major League Soccer headquarters to overhaul the system that they've created. It's their baby. It's what they built from nothing into something that is sustainable, something that can sort of limit risk for the owners. And I think that's been a big part of it as well. But, yes, you have this moment now. And we've been pointing to 2026 as that moment, that chance to springboard this league forward. Well, now you have the runway you have is Messi on the runway. So you're right. Why do we tune into games? I talk about this all the time. Like, you have to tell people why they're watching something. It has to be about the storylines, the drama. It's why all the debate shows exist about every other league, and why off-season talk and trade hot stoves and all of that stuff matters, right? Because you're getting people to buy into the stories so that they tune into the games. They're not a fan of, the Washington football team is not going to watch Kansas City against LA because they're fans of the game. They're watching because Mahomes and the stories that we're telling about how those teams were built. MLS doesn't have that, right? They don't have that kind of exposure. And we see when you get that exposure, and Zlatan's the best example of it. He's on talk shows. People on Sports Center saying, you have to see this guy. You have to see this guy. And then the numbers for Zlatan's games go through the roof because people are told, you have to watch this. That's going to happen for Messi. So how do you then turn those eyeballs, that attention to the rest of the league? And I think the way you start to do it is say, hey, we're ready to grow. Can you sell that story and say Messi coming here, like Charlie said, is a game changer? It shows that this league is different. It can be different. We have more billionaire owners in this league than probably any league in the rest of the world. We can be competitive for these types of players. But if you're going to sell that story, if you're going to tell people, come tune in, if you're going to tell players who are coming for the World Cup in 2026, sign an MLS afterwards or beforehand, you need to grow, change. And I think that's, for me, the selling point of this deal. When we talk about the change it can bring, it has to be more than just people tuning in for Messi, people buying tickets for Messi. It's a great story right now, what's happening with ticket sales around the league. But if you want lasting change, it has to be like Beckham. The DP rule is lasting change. It impacted how the league does business. Messi can do that too, but there have to be willing parties at the Board of Governors to do that.
Well, let's talk about the Messi rule, the potential Messi rule. So instead of 3 DPs, which we have now in Major League Soccer, maybe that expands to 5, because I think 5 would be a good number. And there are a number of teams who would use all 5. There are a number of teams who probably wouldn't use all 5, but then that could probably beef up the roster from 6 to 15, if you will. And I think that would help teams become a little bit more competitive, deeper, because Steve Cherundolo also talked about LAFC not having enough depth to compete with some of the sides in Liga MX, which I don't agree with, because LAFC should have won that tie. But in the end, Lionel Messi has a lot of former teammates that want to come to play with him, and just maybe people in general that want to get a chance to play with him before they retire and still have the capabilities to do really well in this league. What do you see happening first? Inter Miami signing a coach like a Tata Martino, and then the rules happening in the way that they should, or maybe it's just a coach and you're sticking with Messi for the rest of the season, and then we see rules changing for the following years?
I don't think that you can go into the rest of the season with Messi and the current roster that not only sits at the bottom of the table, but has, when you look at like the advanced analytics, one of the worst attacks in Major League Soccer history. Like, their attacking output is so bad that it's historically bad. No one wants to watch Messi with that team, right? So there's a reason why we should be talking about guys like Busquets and Angel Di Maria and Luis Suarez and all these big names.
And you have Neymar is free next year.
Right. So if you want that, if you really want to see the best of Messi, I mean, I covered Orlando City, Heath's team, of course, in 2015 when Kaká came in as an expansion
Still
team.
My team.
And yeah, still under contract, I believe. Still have your rights.
They have his rights.
And Kaká, the brilliance of Kaká is his ability to anticipate what's going to happen next and to play those passes into those dangerous spaces before other teams understand that those balls are going to be there. Well, that didn't matter if the guy's not making the run, right? You can't play those passes if there's no one there to receive them, to run onto them. And you don't want that with Messi either. I mean, Messi is going to be a different type of player. He'll score more goals than Kaká did, but you put more quality around him, you're going to see more of the best of Leo Messi. I do think there's one simple change that they can make early on in this summer, as soon as this summer, to make things easier for Inter Miami to move players out so that they can bring new players in. And that's something that's been worked on for the last 3 or 4 years. And it's an internal transfer market to allow players to be bought and sold within MLS for cash and not just allocation money. And that would be a game changer, because then you could buy somebody like a Campana from Miami for $3 million, let's say, where there's no chance you could ever trade for him. They'd have to find an international partner to sell him to open up space. So that type of rule change is a simple one, but one that could have an impact on the quality we see with Messi. As far as the increase in DPs, I think let's think the other way. Maybe you drop down to 1 or 2 DPs and you create a salary cap and a floor, and you say, okay, now teams have $30 million to spend with, room for a Messi deal, right? Because he's going to be making more than $30 million a year, but you can sign 3 or 4 guys making $2 or $3 million and still have plenty of room to build out the rest of your team. This is a way to kind of create more depth, but also more depth and quality at the top of the roster. And I think it would bring MLS closer in line to the rest of the world in terms of kind of how you focus your spend. So it's not just isolated on 3 or 4 or 5 guys.